The Plateau. This happened a couple weeks into the summer, right after graduation. I had just finished high school, and for the first time in my life, there was nothing waiting for me on the other side. No classes, no deadlines, no expectations. Just a wide-open summer stretching out in front of me like a promise. Everyone always says the beginning of summer is the best time of the year, and I believed it. It felt like freedom in its purest form. In Wyoming, where I grew up, that feeling tends to push people toward the open land. There's a sort of unspoken tradition among new graduates. You drive way out into the plateaus, far from town, far from cell service, and you climb. I don't know if it exists anywhere else, but at my school, it was treated like a rite of passage. Celebrate your freedom by putting yourself somewhere high and dangerous and trusting your hands not to fail you. We'd been talking about it for weeks before we finally committed. It was me, Alexandra, Nick, and Jack. We'd been friends since middle school. Alex was the only one with a car we trusted enough to make the drive. A Jeep she adored, constantly talking about upgrades and off-road trails. She jumped at any excuse to take it out into rough terrain. She also didn't drink, which made her the automatic designated driver. The rest of us packed beers to crack open once we reached the top. Our plan was loose but simple. Start at the Flaming Gorge lookout, then drive through the plateau area until we found a formation that looked climbable. No real schedule, no pressure. The lookout was stunning. One of those views that reminds you why you tolerate the long winters. Endless land, distant ridgelines, the kind of silence that feels earned. We took photos, mostly because Alex demanded about 100 of herself from every angle. After about an hour, we headed back toward Route 80, moving slow, scanning the roadside for anything worth stopping at. That's when we saw it. Just off Highway 141, there was a cluster of massive rock formations rising from the ground like broken teeth. Not technical climbing, but tall enough to make your legs shake. Alex pulled into a small gravel lot without hesitation. We grabbed our packs, filled them with drinks, and started the climb. It took maybe 15 minutes to reach the top. A steady scramble. Good handholds. Nothing extreme. Alex went first, confident and sure-footed. I followed, then Nick, then Jack bringing up the rear. The view from the top was unreal. Miles in every direction, no buildings, no roads, just Wyoming stretching endlessly outward. We cracked open our beers and sat near the edge, talking about people from school, plans that might never happen, futures that still felt abstract. I remember feeling perfectly content, like this moment was exactly where I was supposed to be. That's when I noticed the truck. A red pickup speeding down the highway. At first, I barely paid attention, but then it slammed on its brakes, right in the middle of the road. It came to a complete stop. Then, impossibly, it started reversing. I pointed it out, and we all went quiet, watching as it backed up until it could turn into the gravel lot where Alex's Jeep was parked. A man stepped out. From that distance, we could only make out his build. Tall, broad. He looked around, then walked straight to Alex's Jeep. At first we assumed he was just another climber, or maybe someone checking out the view, but then he started peering into the windows, trying the door handles, circling the vehicle slowly. That's when Nick yelled down at him, "Hey!" The man jumped, clearly startled. He spun around, scanning until he spotted us on top of the plateau. When he did, he waved. Casual, almost friendly. For a moment, we thought that would be the end of it, but he went right back to the Jeep. Jack shouted that we were armed. I still think that was a terrible idea. We weren't armed, not even close, but Jack was convinced it would scare him off. Instead, the man looked up at us and yelled back, "Me too, kiddo." He raised something into the air and waved it. From that distance, I couldn't tell what it was, but my stomach dropped anyway. Then he started slamming his shoulder into the Jeep's windows. We could hear the impacts even from where we were sitting. Alex started screaming at him. The rest of us joined in, yelling, swearing, making as much noise as possible while scrambling down the rock face as fast as we safely could. I've never climbed down anything that fast in my life. By the time we heard glass shatter, we'd hit the ground and were sprinting toward the lot. The man turned, saw us coming, and raised the object again. This time, there was no doubt. It was a gun. He pointed it directly at us and shouted for us to stop. We did. Hands up, hearts pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. He told us to throw our phones and wallets on the ground. We didn't hesitate. Then he ordered us to walk backward while he collected them, keeping the gun trained on us the entire time. Up close he looked ordinary. mid-50s, scraggly beard, sun-weathered skin, the kind of face you'd forget the moment you turned away. That terrified me more than anything. After he gathered our belongings, he pulled out a knife and punctured one of Alex's tires. Then, he walked back to his pickup. I noticed it didn't have license plates. He drove off without another word. We stood there in silence. Alex was shaking with rage. I was shaking from shock. We changed the tire as fast as we could, knowing it wouldn't matter. By the time we got back on the road, he was long gone. The police never found him. And I never felt safe in remote places again. Shut the town. My name is Sophia. This happened 3 years ago when I was 19. My older brother Luke had just graduated college in California, and we were driving cross-country back to New Jersey. He'd accumulated 4 years' worth of furniture and belongings, so flying wasn't an option. We rented a U-Haul. Our parents warned us about New Mexico, not the entire state, just the remote stretches, scams, crime, towns you don't stop in unless you absolutely have to. We planned to drive straight through. That plan fell apart when the gas gauge dropped faster than expected. With no real choice, we stopped in a small desert town about 10 miles ahead. The place felt wrong, too quiet, too still. Locals stared, lingering looks that made my skin crawl. After filling up, we tried to get back to the highway. We couldn't. Every road curved away, dead-ended, led somewhere else. The GPS kept routing us to roads that didn't exist anymore. Signals came and went. After 20 minutes of circling, Luke went back to the gas station for directions. The clerk told him to drive 17 miles in the opposite direction. We didn't trust it. As we were figuring out what to do, a dusty pickup pulled up beside us. The driver warned us not to follow those directions, said it would lead us somewhere dangerous. He gave us an alternate route. We followed it. A mile outside town, a barely visible gravel road appeared. It led us back to the highway. Luke called it a miracle. I called it a warning. The restaurant. This happened 5 summers ago. My girlfriend at the time, P.S., had just graduated college. We were broke, reckless, and desperate to travel. We booked the cheapest Airbnbs we could find and ended up in Rijeka, Croatia. It wasn't touristy. We stood out immediately. On our second day, we found a small local restaurant tucked away from the city center. The food was incredible, cheap, perfect. Halfway through the meal, P.S. went quiet. She leaned across the table and whispered that we needed to leave. Outside, she told me what she'd overheard. 5 men, talking about what they were going to do to us, to her. When I looked back, they were already watching. They followed us. We ran until we hit a busy street. They stopped at the edge of it, just standing there, watching us disappear into the crowd. A local later told us we'd wandered into a known criminal hangout. We left Croatia early. Some places don't want you there, and if you're lucky, they let you leave.